Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. Today we're doing a video on another 1936 to 1945 expansion set. This is called The Might of the Reich, and it's from the Bring in the Heavy set from the America game. So the America game is a game that takes place starting in 1946. It assumes that World War II ended with the Axis winning the war, and then the Japanese and invades America from the Pacific coast, and the Germans and Italians invade America from the East Coast. And like the board is a large map of the United States. So the weapons are slightly in the future, like not really futuristic. There's no flying tanks or anything, but just a couple of more years advanced than World War II standards. But they're the weapons that were on the drawing table during World War II. Like they were planning on building them, and if the war had lasted longer, then these weapons would have got into the game. So the weapons that you'll see in this one were a little bit more advanced, just slightly more. But this is the special set. Like this isn't the regular America pieces. This is a set that you could have added to the America game. And so there's three different sets from the Bring in the Heavy set. There's the Might of the Reich, which is the German one that we're going to look at today. There's the Japanese one, the Glory of the Empire. And there's the American one, or the Allied one. The Allies were actually more than just the Americans. They were all the Allies had retreated back to America. So the UK and Canada and all that. That was called Champions of Freedom. Anyway, today in this video, we're going to look at the Might of the Reich, Bring in the Heavies. So let's just take a look at the units here. So you can see here, like they've got the wing here. It's a little bit more advanced. It's a jet fighter, of course, and then some of the tanks and destroyers. Like the weapons that they put in here were heavy weapons, right? For the most part. I mean, there's a light tank in there as well. But the feeling was to add beef to your armies, and that's what the Bring in the Heavies is all about. So let's just get into what these things are. Let me just grab the papers here. When you're buying these, you can either buy a set of these where you get 2 of each, or you can buy a set where you get 5 of each. And you'll see when we go through these that you probably won't be able to put more than 2 of each on, because you have to meet certain conditions, like you have to develop certain technologies or wait till a certain date. You can't just throw these in 1936, right? Like you have to develop technologies and stuff to be able to get them. So let's just zoom in here so you can get a good look at some of these things. Okay, so the first thing we're looking at here, that is the Horton HO-229 jet fighter bomber. I've seen a documentary a few months ago, and they showed in some old garage they found one of these things. It wasn't put together, like it was in the process of being assembled. It was somewhere in Germany. I can't remember where it was, but it definitely was on the drawing board, and it was they were building the prototype. It was made out of wood because it was supposed to be stealth, right? So they had to make it out of wood. Anyway, it was a prototype flying wing jet fighter bomber. Like a normal fighter would be 6 and 6, right? Like attack at 6, defend at 6. So this one here, you're attacking at 8 and defending at 8. And the interception value is a 4 instead of a 3. It only moves 4, so the same, and it costs 12, so a little bit more than a fighter. But this is one of those ones, and you've seen them on my videos before, where you can actually use it as a fighter or a tactical bomber. So you would just state when you're doing your combat moves, okay, I'm using it as a tactical bomber on this turn. So if you use it as a tactical bomber, then it attacks at 8, defends at 5, moves 4, and costs 12. So it's the same movement and costs. So availability, it can be purchased after Germany has developed jet aircraft and built at least 3 jets of any kind. So you're going to have to build 3 jet aircraft first after you develop jet aircraft, and then you can build one of these. So you're only going to get one late in the war, right? Unless you have where you play where you just keep going, like you don't end in 1945, you go until somebody surrenders kind of thing. Then maybe you need a pack of 5 of these. Otherwise, a pack of 2 might just do you, and it's not that expensive to get 2 of each, right? So if you're using it as a fighter bomber, like you have to say so, and it has it plays like a fighter, okay? I don't need to explain that to you. If you're watching this, then you probably played Global War before, or you've been watching my videos and you know what a fighter does. And if you're using it as a tactical bomber, it's still 1 to 3 is your target selection. So no difference there. The only difference, I guess, you would have to say would be, I think it's +1 attack and defense if you're using it as a tactical bomber. So if you're going against ground units, or if you're going against ships, then maybe it's better to go in as a tactical bomber because you get that target selection. But if you're going in where there's going to be an air superiority role, then definitely use it as a fighter, because then you get that. And of course, you can use it as an escort, or as an interceptor for bombing missions. So that thing would be pretty handy. And the next thing, now that one looks pretty futuristic here. That's the Arado E-555. It was a jet long-range strategic bomber. So it was developed in response to a German request for a bomber that could strike the United States from Europe. And it's got a heavy payload and blah blah blah. I don't need to read it all to you. So it's carpet bombing is at 2, just like a regular strategic bomber. It defends at 2. It moves 9 and it costs 13. So it's available after Germany has developed jet aircraft and long-range aircraft. So you have to develop both those weapons, and before you can build one of these. It says when a fast bomber is the only viable target of a propeller-driven non-jet fighter, their interception value is reduced to 1. And it has all the capabilities of a strategic bomber. So I guess what they're saying is that you still only get 3 dice when you're doing a carpet bombing or when you're bombing a factory. The one thing about this one, I guess, that would be better than a bomber would be the movement ability, and that would be 9 instead of 6 for a bomber normally. Yeah. So the next thing here, let's just move this down the line here. This is, let's just take a good look at it here. I'll move it around a bit. That's a heavy tank, believe it or not. By the way, while I do that, let me just show you. This is an Axis and Allies tank. Just so you get a reference for the size of these things. The one that's sitting beside now is a light tank. That's a tank destroyer. Yeah, and then down here, this is the King Tiger down here. You can see the King Tiger's painted a slightly different color than these other ones. That's because I've had these for a long time, and I was using these in Axis and Allies for a heavy tank. And back then I had a different color of black, so that's why it's slightly different color than the rest of them. And while I'm talking about that, these normally come in gray. The America set comes in gray. I've painted them black so that I could use them with my other Axis and Allies pieces in Global War and in Axis and Allies. So that first heavy tank that I showed you there, that's this one here, the funny looking one. It was a heavy tank design that was never used. It called for a 57-ton vehicle mounting an 88 millimeter main gun. Those 88 guns, they really worked well for the Germans. It attacks at 7, defends at 6, it moves 2, and it costs 7. So it doesn't cost much more than a regular medium tank. So you can build it when Germany has stage 3 of heavy tank technology. Like they're saying here, it was canceled because there were better designs. But what they're saying is you don't have to go all the way to developing a heavy tank here. Like here we got heavy armor, and Germany already starts here, right? Sorry, I'm not even looking at it. Germany starts here already. So once you do 2, then you can actually build it here. You don't have to go all the way to the end of heavy armor to be able to build it. So that's the advantage of buying one of these, is that it's slightly better than a medium tank with that attack 7 and defense 6. But it does cost 1 IPP more. So the next one would be a super heavy tank. Not a heavy tank, but a super heavy tank. These things were generally slow moving, big, huge. Anyway, that's a behemoth. So it was exceptionally slow, both because it was heavy and because it could not cross most small road bridges in the European countryside. But it had a massive gun on it, right? It attacks at 9, defends at 4, only moves 1, and costs 9. So it's available after Germany develops heavy armor. It has a target selection of 1 to 2, and that's against armor units. It cannot be the subject of target selection by ground units. The Moss may not blitz. So that's a bonus there for you. They can't choose this one as target selection when they're going after you, or at least a ground unit can't. That doesn't mean that a tactical bomber couldn't do it, because that's an air unit, right? So anyway, that's a big behemoth, a door knocker, I like to call them. The next one is a VK 1602 Leopard. That's a light tank right there. Here, let's just take a look at her there. The sculpts are pretty nice in these. That's one of the things that I really like about the America set. Not just these, but the regular America set. And I'm going to show you those as well. It was a German reconnaissance vehicle that never advanced beyond the prototype stage. The vehicle had a sloped frontal armor, but was undergunned with a 50mm main armament that would be ineffective against Soviet tanks. The unit represents an advanced light armor unit with improved vehicles and tactics. So with that, it looks like the same stats as a light armor. It attacks at 4, defends at 4, moves 2, and costs 5. So it's available in July of 1943, so long as Germany has stage 3 heavy armor. So that's like that first tank that I showed you there. You have to have stage 3 of heavy armor. But with this one though, unlike other light armor, this one can blitz. So that's going to be a big advantage for you. Be able to blitz with a light tank, right? Okay, so the next one is it's a tank destroyer. So we'll just take a little look at that one there. It's a Jag-D-E-50. And it looks like a tank destroyer. Generally they had the turret at the back and really long barrel. Okay, so it was intended as a replacement for the Tiger 1 and Panther tanks. It weighed 75 tons and could travel 40 kilometers an hour. It would have been equipped with the latest German range finding and night vision equipment. So it attacks at 8 and it defends at 8, it moves 2 and it costs 8. So it is significantly more powerful than a medium tank. So you can get this when Germany has heavy tank technology and has built 3 heavy tanks of any kind. So you have to develop that heavy tank technology and then build 3 heavy tanks, and then you're allowed to buy one of these. This thing can blitz, even though it's a tank destroyer, it can blitz. And it has target selection of 1 to 2 against armor class units. So that would be pretty handy if you're going against the Russians and they had heavy tank technology and they were spamming the board with their heavy tanks, because that is as powerful as a heavy tank and can blitz, but it's that target selection of 1 to 2 that is the real kicker for that one, right? And the next one is the Jag-D Tiger. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but when German, where it's Jag-D. Is it Jag-D or is it Jag? I don't know. Anyway, that's what this one is. It's this is the one that I'm using for The Italians. This is the sculpt that I'm using for the Italian heavy tanks because I've got lots of them, right? Um, they don't have a heavy tank, so a sculpt out on the market, at least not a good one anyway. There's the Caro Armato, but it's actually smaller than the Axis and Allies medium tank for them, and I like my heavy tanks to be slightly larger than a medium tank, just so I can see it on the board and see without having to get right up close that that's a heavy tank, right? So that thing there, it was a heavy tank destroyer fielded by Germany during World War II, and it was quite big, I guess. Um, I guess they did actually build some of them, but only 88 of them were built by war's end. So that would have been, they would have continued with that had the war continued, right? So it attacks at 7, defends at 7, it moves 2, and it costs 8. So slightly better than a medium tank. When Germany has you can build it when Germany has heavy tank technology and has built 3 heavy tanks. It may not blitz, but it has a target selection of 1 to 3. So that's really good on the target selection there, and that's against armor class units. But also, here's the real good thing about that one. It has first strike if there's at least one enemy armor class unit that is a viable target. So if you're going up against a pile of units and there's at least one tank in there or armor class unit, then bam, you get first strike with this baby here. So that's you know how powerful that is if you played this game. Okay, so then here's my favorite here. That's the King Tiger, right there. Yeah, that's a nice sculpt. It's a beauty. I sent my friend Reich home with a couple of them because I had 7 of them. So I sent him home with 2 of them. Hopefully he gets some good use out of those. So the King Tiger, it's a Tiger II or King Tiger. It was an extremely advanced German tank design and one of the most feared weapons of World War II. Yeah, you knew when there was one of those on the battlefield. It had an 88-inch main gun, which could take out almost any tank fielded by the Allies. So attack 9, defense 9, movement 2, and cost 12. After Germany has developed heavy armor and completed construction of 4 Tiger 1E, it may begin to build the Tiger II. The Tiger II may blitz. It has a target selection of 1 to 3. So this thing is a killer. After you build 4 Tigers, and you can build this one, it's got like 75% shooting, right? Because you're rolling at a 9, and 1 to 3 target, and against armor class unit. I mean, what's not to like about having a King Tiger, right? And the last thing is this here. I think this is the same plane. I'm not sure, but I think that's the same plane that you get in what is that? The America Bomber set. So it's the ME-264. So it was a long-range maritime. Yeah, I believe it is. So carpet bombing. It's got a 1 interception value. Defense 2, movement 24, cost 18. It's available when Germany has developed long-range aircraft and has built at least 3 other long-range aircraft first. So strategic bombing, it's just a standard long-range strategic bomber, so you would roll 3 dice when you're doing the strategic bombing or the carpet bombing. But there's also a maritime version, so kind of like the Horton down there at the end there, where you could use it as a fighter or an attack bomber. This thing has dual use as well, and you would state that when you were going to start. So same thing on the movement and well, actually the cost is only 16. Huh? I wonder how do you differentiate with then? I'm not sure. Anyway, basically this thing's for convoy raiding. So maybe you'd have to put a convoy token underneath it or something. I'm not sure. It's available when Germany has developed long-range aircraft and built 3 other long-range aircraft. So it can be used as a maritime patrol aircraft. It must be designated as such prior to moving. It's on combat air patrol and remains a maritime bomber until it lands again and can be redesigned. So, naval use. The ME-264's attack defense value as a maritime bomber may only be used to cause casualties to naval targets. It defends against attacking aircraft at 1. The combat air patrol range is 3. It may engage in convoy raiding with a +1 bonus. So, I guess it's for defense and attack against convoy raiding with this thing. That's getting pretty technical, though. I think I'd just use it for the strategic bomber. So anyway, that's the bring in the heavies there. And let me just show you there. They give you this table here. Here, I can zoom back out now. They give you this table here, and what I've done here, I'm going to show you this, and then I'll go get the one that I have. So there's the regular America pieces. This is the strategic bomber. That's a jet fighter, and I'm using that as jet fighters in my game. There's the medium tank. There's their heavy tank. They've got self-propelled artillery, self-propelled anti-aircraft. This I'm using as the advanced mechanized infantry, but this is their mechanized infantry piece. And this is a Panzer Grenadier. So take a look at those. Now those things you can also purchase in your Global War game, but you would have to purchase the America game first, right? Because that's where you get those pieces. You can't buy them anywhere but in the box game of the America game. And you can use the pieces, and you can go on to Historical Board Gaming's website somewhere in the 1936 games, like where they're showing the rules and stuff like that, and it'll give you rules for using all of these pieces in your rules. Or you can just use them like I have so far. It's just like here's your here's, and like this I'm using this as a medium tank. But you can go by their rules, right? Like they'd be kicked up versions. This is a little bit stronger than a medium tank. So here, let's just take a look at this for the heavy set. So I've made up this German one and put it in plastic there because it's better than carrying papers around. You might be eating something, you might spill something, whatever. And this is kind of cool because I got them to put it in a matte finish, and on the other side I also put in the bring in the heavies. There's the America table and there's the Japanese table. So like you don't really need 3 of them, right? You can just pass it across the table because it's not like you're using these units every single turn. Maybe late in the game you might start, but it'd be handy to have an extra table like that. So all I did was I just scanned the three summary tables from the 3 sets and put them all into one card like that. Anyway, so that is it. So these things, like I said, you can purchase them 2 at a time or 5 at a time, and then get to using them. And I think they would be mostly handy for people who've been playing the game for a while that want to spice it up a little bit more, throw in some extra units, so a little more complexity. If you're just learning the game, then it's probably complex enough and you don't really need to add much more to it at that point. But a year or 2 down the road, there you go, a couple games in. Anyway, take care everyone. General Hand Grenade out.